tell us a little bit about yourself and the Florida Policy Institute's mission and your personal journey that led you to become CEO?
Sure. My name is Sadaf Knight. I'm CEO of Florida Policy Institute. I moved to Florida about 6 years ago now. I'm originally from California, but I lived all up and down the East Coast for many years. But now Orlando is home. And I joined FPI in 2018. Florida Policy Institute is a nonprofit, independent public policy research and advocacy organization. So what we do is we publish research on Florida's most pressing challenges. We develop policy recommendations. We work in partnership with organizations across the state. We do broad public education. We work with the media and try to get the word out there about all of our work that we're doing, and we advocate in Tallahassee for policy change. Our mission is to advance state policies and budgets that expand economic opportunity for all Floridians and improve the quality of life for everyone who lives here.
What are some specific initiatives that FPI is working on to foster social justice in Central Florida?
So we have expertise in many areas across the policy spectrum. So we work a lot on budget and tax issues. And I should mention we focus at state level policies. From time to time, also local policies and federal policies as well. But really, we focus at the state level. So we work on budget and tax, immigration, education, health, safety net, criminal justice, housing, and child well-being. And so in all those areas, we have policies that we are working on and issues that we're focused on that will help to expand people's ability to make ends meet and really thrive in their communities. So some examples are in the health space, for example. Right now, the state is going through the redetermination process for Medicaid. So we've been monitoring that process, making sure that people aren't getting kicked off of Medicaid for procedural reasons after, now that the public health emergency has ended. And so we've been monitoring that process. We have been looking at K through 12 funding. We have a lot of different policies that we're looking at across the board.
How are they making a tangible difference?
So like I mentioned in the area of health, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government passed laws that allowed people to stay on their Medicaid or enroll in Medicaid without having to redetermine their eligibility. So that you could stay on it for as long as the public health emergency at the federal level was in place. When that expired, this provision called continuous coverage also expired, and starting in April, that meant the state had to redetermine Medicaid eligibility for over 5 million Floridians. And so in that process, many people, over 80% of the people who have been kicked off so far, has not been because they're not eligible, but because of procedural reasons. They're not getting notices, they're not getting information about what to do to stay enrolled or things like that. And so when people don't have access to health care, that's one of the major things that can inhibit their ability to, be healthy, have the resources they need to provide for their families. One medical emergency can really put somebody really behind. And so this is just one example of a policy that comes from both the state and federal level, but has really tangible impacts on people's everyday lives.
How does FPI collaborate with other organizations, community groups, or government bodies to achieve its goals?
Collaboration is actually one of the key aspects of our work. We do so much of our work in partnership with coalitions and community groups, advocates, direct service providers, and everyday Floridians. In all the issue areas that I mentioned, we have deep partnerships with other organizations in the state. And so how we partner is we work together to develop research or on communication strategies to help educate the public about what's happening in Tallahassee and how it impacts their lives and what they can do about it. We also work on doing things like town halls or webinars, events and things where we can present our research in different communities. So those are some of the ways that we partner, and partnership and collaboration is a key part of our work. And of course, we also work with legislators in Tallahassee and with elected officials across the state and also at the federal level to advance the policies that we are working on.
Can you share an example of a successful partnership?
Sure. One of the partnerships that we have that we really manage at FPI is called our Safety Net Advocacy Coalition. And this is dozens of organizations across the state that are community organizations, service providers, faith organizations, legal services, just a variety and diverse number of organizations that have come together to protect and grow our safety net. So this includes programs like SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or WIC for nutrition programs for children, things like that. And this has been a really wonderful coalition that we have been able to really mobilize in support of important policies like summer nutrition programs for kids. Or other ways that we've been able to draw on our SNAC members to advocate for policies to bring down funding and resources to help families make ends meet.
How does your organization ensure that policies and practices promote inclusion and diversity within the community?
We do all of our work through the lens of equity. And so how can we pursue policy solutions that will expand equity in Florida? One thing that's really special, I think, about our organization is that all of our work is grounded in our 4 core values that we developed as a team that we really sort of try to embody in everything we do. And they are pursue equity, lead with integrity, share power, and be kind. And so really throughout all of our work, we look at how we can use data and research to show where the disparities and the opportunities are. How can we ensure that we are reflecting the perspectives of people who are directly impacted by the policy decisions that are being made? And how can we be good partners to organizations around the state and support the work that they do, through partnering with them, providing assistance, working together, sharing resources, and things like that.
What have been the key successes and challenges in this area?
In terms of challenges, the pace of achieving policy change is very slow, and so we know that there are things that will take multiple years in order to achieve, and that's just the nature of how policies evolve in Florida, especially when you're looking at policies that are meant to break down barriers and to mitigate harms and expand equity. However, we have been able to see some success in passing policies that have brought down significant resources for our communities. Things like health services in schools and providing additional resources to do that throughout the state, or providing, like I said earlier, nutrition for kids over the summer. Many kids rely on school meals through the school year, but during the summer they don't really have access to that. So having those additional resources is really critical for these families. And then, in other ways, we've seen our partners really come together and really advocate for things that we all feel very passionately and we care about. And that's been really wonderful to see. And I think that the opportunity is really there to keep working together and keep collaborating over the long term and really build a state where, every family, every individual, every worker is able to thrive, no matter, where you come from or where you live.
You have an expertise in economic development.
Mm-hmm.
How does this align with social justice, and what innovative strategies is the organization employing to improve economic mobility in the region?
Economic development really is, when you break it down, how do we grow our state's economy? How do we grow our local economies? And, oftentimes the focus is on attracting businesses from out of state. How can we bring those big businesses to Florida or to our, counties and towns that are going to set up shop and then employ a bunch of people? But really, economic development is much broader than that. We need to have all of the public services and the kind of environment and climate that people want to live in and where people can succeed in order to have businesses locate here and then have a workforce that's got the right skills and has all the amenities to ensure that people will want to work here. So that includes all the things I've already talked about, things like housing, health, transportation, libraries, quality schools. And so those are all the areas that, we see it all as interconnected. So if you ensure that you're investing equitably across the state in those things, then you'll be able to have thriving communities where businesses want to locate, where small businesses can thrive, where big businesses can also employ lots of people and have a really conducive ecosystem so that our economy can grow in a more equitable way.
For those who want to get involved, what volunteer opportunities are available at the organization?
Well, we don't have any specific volunteer opportunities at the moment, but we do from time to time have internship opportunities. And so we post those on our website, which is www.floridapolicy.org. So definitely when those come available, we like to help, students and other people just have access to and a chance to work at a policy think tank like ours. You can always sign up for our newsletter and stay informed, first and foremost, about policies that are moving through the state legislature or the research that we're publishing and the policy recommendations that we have. And, we often do presentations. Like I said, they're virtual or in person in partnership with other organizations as well. So, people are invited to attend those and learn from the work that we're doing, help us share it in the community and help us share on social media. Or, if you have an organization you're a part of and would like FPI to come speak, we're always happy to do that as well.
And how can they contribute to the social justice movement?
I think understanding how policies impact our communities is number one. And I think it can be challenging because it seems like it's a conversation kind of happening somewhere else that's really wonky and not really easy to follow. Our goal is to be able to really take those conversations and make them easy to understand and to really see the real impacts for just anybody who's interested and for everyone to understand how this impacts their daily lives. So I think first and foremost, staying educated about what's happening and finding opportunities to learn more, seeking out our resources at FPI and other organizations, and then getting involved in your community to advocate for what it is that you see you need, whether that's quality education or, infrastructure in your community. Housing is really important. Whatever those issues are, connecting with people in your community, organizations, and advocates who can help you kind of make your voice heard locally and at the state level.
All right, so I'm going to do an activity with you.
Okay.
So at the time of this recording, we have a discussion on the tourism development tax.
Okay.
And there's a lot of discussion from the community on how this money can be used for the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's a discussion on the state policy that it can only be used on things that bring tourism.
Mm-hmm.
Has your organization looked into this? And how do you feel, from what you do know, these funds can be used to provide social justice and social equity
Within the context of tourism, right?
within the context of what the money is able to be
Yeah.
used for?
I mean, it's challenging because, you need to raise revenue to do the things that you want to do, to invest in our communities. And so tourism, as we know, is one of the kind of lifeblood of Florida. It's a huge industry. So many people are, employed in tourism-related industries and sectors. I would say that supporting the workers who are fueling this industry would be one way to promote equity, possibly also transportation and housing for those workers, because we know that affording a place to live is getting harder and harder, and many, workers in tourism-related sectors have to live really far from their jobs because they're just not able to afford, where they can work, and also providing transportation so that they can get to work easily and keep their jobs. So I think those would be my answers for how. I don't know if that falls within the exact boundaries of what the funds could actually be used for, but I would say, any way that we can support workers in that industry would be one way that we could expand equity.
How could we get creative with it then? Because we cannot use that. That is exactly what everyone keeps saying, though, of what the money should be used for.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't unless the state at some point allows us to,
Mm-hmm.
which we've been asked to at least lobby the legislature to release those funds for some of those uses.
Right.
But we're not there.
Okay.
And who knows if we'll ever get there.
Mm-hmm.
So creatively, how can we use these funds to probably get there? I know one of the things that I've been thinking about is that, or that some of the discussions, there's these organizations that's asking for this money.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems with tourism, although it's our lifeblood, is that it's caused a lot of issues too, like low wages.
Right.
We're the number one of the lowest wages in the country,
right,
because of our tourism industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been asking for the data on how much money is the government actually spending, subsidizing all the government social programs for people who are not getting paid enough from the tourism industry.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that loss?
Mm-hmm.
I know we're talking about people, but let's, I'd say let's bring it down to the numbers,
Right.
To actually see what the real impact is, on our community. Because when you talk about money, people know what money is,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how
Mm-hmm.
much money are we spending
Right.
supporting people to work in these industries?
Mm-hmm.
And then these industries saying, oh, we're bringing all this economic development.
But who's seeing it? Who's seeing the growth?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when we have these, Dr. Phillips,
Mm-hmm.
the Amway, Camping World, the Convention Center, all asking for money from this fund, how can we give this money? Or will it be more beneficial to give this money to smaller groups who are having programming, but they still have to show that they're bringing tourism?
Mm-hmm.
There's all I'm seeing all these pathways that you could probably get creative. Like if we're going to give the money to, well, we own the convention center, but let's say that we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If we were going to the convention center, we'd be like, we'll give you the money,
Mm-hmm.
but your minimum wage has to be this.
Right. Any sort of, I know in other places, and I'm not familiar in Florida, but community benefits agreements and things like that. Or maybe even if you can put any sort of stipulations on the funding, contracting with local businesses, suppliers and things like that. I know from an entrepreneurship perspective, if a small business gets a government contract, that's a huge opportunity for them to grow. And we need to see more of our, Florida-grown businesses, thrive and be able to succeed and take that next leap. So maybe something along those lines. Because I think you're absolutely right. The growth of low wages is a huge challenge in Florida. And it's kind of like a reinforcing thing. Housing is getting more expensive. Wages are not keeping up. Everything is getting more expensive. And so it keeps the divide between how much people are actually making and what it takes to actually afford a decent quality of life is just getting bigger and bigger. And so often we hear these economic metrics like, oh, unemployment is so low. In aggregate, maybe that's, the case, but but that doesn't resonate with people's actual experience of trying to afford their quality of life in Florida. We know inflation is going up. It's pretty bad here in Florida. Mm-hmm. So there's a disconnect there between, what might seem like a quote unquote booming economy on the surface level versus the people who are really supporting those industries not really being able to benefit from that growth.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for all the work that you do. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you inviting us for me to join. Thank you so much.
If you're enjoying this show, please subscribe to our channel and follow our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts.